My name is Jim Conlan from RCB Radio Sport, West Clare Radio, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. I'm delighted today to be joined by the Michael Cusacks manager, Brian Reilly, as we look ahead to the intermediate clash between Michael Cusacks and Wolfe Tones. And I suppose, Brian, last year, for 2019, it was a year to savour for Michael Cusacks after so many years of trying to get out of that Junior A Championship, semi-finalists, finalists, quarter-finalists, been knocking on the door. I think 2 or 3 Junior A finals that went astray for you that were so close. You actually took down what people would call the favourites in the banner to rightfully earn your place in the intermediate championship this year. But as you know, a big step up from Junior A football to intermediate. The intermediate championship is very competitive in Clare since they've reduced the senior competition and a few teams being relegated to the intermediate. It's really livened up the intermediate championship and brought new life to it.
Yeah, like I suppose I wasn't involved with the boys last year. I'm only just kind of stepped in this year. Now I was at the final last year. I have a brother-in-law playing. He was playing full forward last year. For Michael Cusick. So I was there last year. And I know they've had a lot of heartbreak over the years. One of my selector, Michael Hines, was telling me they've lost 4 intermediate finals as well when he was playing. So it was great for the boys to eventually get over the line. I think this year now, I suppose preparations for me, bar obviously the COVID, I'm sure that's probably going to be coming up later on, has gone very well. Like we were getting good numbers for training. The boys are in good form and good spirit, and they're really looking forward to this now and having a good crack at Wolfe Tones.
Yeah, and I suppose, Brian, in terms of that, earlier on in the league, did you get a game in the league at all? Did you get a game in?
No, we had. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're in the same division as Wolfe Tones in the league, if memory serves me correct. So you didn't manage to get a game.
No, we got no league game at all. We actually got relegated from the league last year. We played Wolfe Tones last year in the league, all right, and the best by 4 points. And last year, we had one challenge match just the week before COVID lockdown came, so we played Liscannor in a challenge match, and it was a fairly competitive challenge match. We've so you said before lockdown, that was the only bit of action we had. We did play Climber in a challenge match there on Sunday, so we're trying to build now for our championship match.
Yeah, and I suppose you're taking on Wolfe Tones, that is a dual club, and for them, they're going to be out the weekend of July the 25, 26 in the hurling championship. They're going to have a game. Most of them are involved in the hurling, will be involved in the football as such. And do you see that as a disadvantage or an advantage for yourselves and Michael Cusacks, that you're a staunch footballing base, apart from probably Joey Droney? I worked with Joey in the past in relation to Clare underage. You probably don't have many other dual players. Is that correct?
We have about 8 to 10 dual players actually that you're playing for Clubber. The likes of Dominic Mahan, of course, you know, he's playing with the Clare senior hurling team at the minute. We have a couple of O'Grady's, you know, so we Rory McMahon, just off the top of my head, there's just a few players, you know, but we have about 8 players, maybe 10 if we take in their Clubber junior hurling team. So they'll all be, as you say, in action the week before. So I think it's, for us at this point, we're just trying to manage both those players, because like they're training 3 times a week with Clubber as it is. And of course I'm trying to get to them twice a week, you know, and trying to squeeze in a game or 2 here and there. So you don't really want these dual players out 4 or 5 nights a week. So we're trying to really manage what we do and so guys don't get hurt and don't get injured. So it's probably dual aspect is something I didn't have in Cavan. It was only a one code in Cavan really with football.
Yeah, and I suppose, Brian, can you hear me? So, Brian, I suppose in terms of championship as such, the format, it's winners sort of take all in terms of getting the shortest route to the county semi-final. The winners round as such, if you win your first game, the second game is a winners round. Win 2 games, you're in a county intermediate semi-final with 3 other teams, and you don't have to go through the back door, the loser sort of section, where there's going to be one of the championship favourites, either Corfin or Kildare, are going to be in that sort of pot, and only you're facing a 3-way playoff then, and only one team makes their way to county semi. So there's a big advantage to go through the front door and be one of those teams to reach the semi-final spot, because you get to size up the 4th other team, and you get to watch that 3-way playoff. So you get to learn, especially for a new manager, you get to learn an awful lot about that 4 team if you're potentially drawing against them.
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all, we're glad to get 2 games in it at least. I suppose a few weeks back we weren't sure how many games we're going to get, if we're going to get any football at all. The fact that that there is that sort of little back door there is brilliant. As for the other teams in the competition, sure, I absolutely know no team in it.
Okay.
Every team is going to be new to me. I went to the county junior final last year, and I went to the senior final last year, and there's probably only 2 games I've gone to, and I'm married to a Clare woman for the last 10 years, so I haven't watched or studied Clare football at all. So I suppose from my point of view, really, is I'm just trying to focus on Cusick and try and get sort of my style of football, the way I see them playing, and working it and working those players, and try and get the best out of them, and hopefully that'll be enough.
Yeah, and I suppose, Brian, you're up against Wolfe Tones, the area of Shannon, a big urban area, probably with a big pick, but the Wolfe Tones community, it starts Shannon, as you know, it's hurling, there's rugby, there's soccer, there's so many divides where players are drawn and pulled. So probably if Wolfe Tones, if they have success underage, come 18 or 19 players have to pick between rugby, between soccer, or between hurling, Gaelic football. So they lose an awful lot of those sorts of players. So Wolfe Tones have been, for a big sort of tradition area, they've been a team sort of in the doldrums for the sort of last few years. So in terms of that, people are predicting this to be a close game, an exciting game, and a game of attacking football. And it's a team really that gets the best of the conditions and prepared the best over this 3 or 4 week run in that will probably come out on top.
Yeah, as we were saying earlier on, we played in the league last year, and there's only 4 points in it, so like there's only 2 kicks of a score really. And the boys were telling me now from playing Wolfe Tones that they were very fit and they're very fast. So that's something that we are going to have to match ourselves really. Other than that, as I say now, I'm new to Clare football. I don't really know much about anything else. It's just really focusing on Cusacks and getting them right and getting them fit for the day really.
Yeah, and I suppose for Michael Cusacks, I suppose getting up to intermediate grade, and you're a new manager to the job. Is it I suppose every team is thinking you go out to compete, you go out to win. That's the sort of thing. There's no real talk about stabilising. I mean, relegation is out the window this year, so for a team that came up from junior, you don't have to worry about that. So you can have a real crack and a real cut at this sort of championship. There's no precautions, there's no sort of backdrop, there's no sort of worry. Players can let loose and have a real go at this championship, because as I said, there is no fall door, there's no pit door this year.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Now really, we're going to win this. We've 4 games, and I'm looking to win all 4 games. I suppose coming up from junior, probably not much expected from us really. And if you look at our league form last year, I guess we got relegated in the league. So again, people are probably not expecting much from us. But I can tell you now that lads have had a real buy-in from the lads this year. So we're hoping to have a real good go at this now, and we won't fear anybody at all.
Yeah, And I suppose, Brian, you have an exciting youngster there in Joey Drone. He was a Clare County minor in 2018, played in an All-Ireland minor quarter-final against Galway. I know last year Joey had an awful problem, injuries problem. He had a problem, but he's probably an exciting player. You didn't really get to use him last year with all the injuries and setbacks Joey had. But is Joey fresh and ready to go this year? Is he injury-free?
Yeah, he's injury free now. He will be one of our dual players, so he's one of those. I know Tubber are keen to use him as well quite a bit. I actually would I teach in Cork Community School, so I actually know Joey quite well. Joey would have been one of the students there, so definitely an exciting player. He'd be one of our sort of main attack interests that we would be hoping to use. But yeah, definitely staying injury free. We're trying to mind him. We're trying to take care of him. Maybe not necessarily wrap him up in cotton wool, but we're just trying to look after him and maybe just kind of limit the amount of events he's out and what he's doing in training session. Maybe like not might be just taking part in a full training session, but just so we want him fresh and injury free for sort of championship time.
I suppose for an intermediate club like Michael Cusacks as well, to have a Clare senior panelist in Donal McMahon, and he's been involved in the county setup, county regime. He's going to have a high level of fitness training under Brian Lohan, and he's going to bring that sort of qualities to your dressing room as well, being a Clare senior hurler, to having that experience and playing against some of the elite players in the county every week in terms of training as well, the matchups and the battles. That's going to be a key thing for a club like yourself, to have someone like that in the dressing room who can bring that sort of leadership qualities to you, coming from a senior county setup that is probably has high aspirations to win an All-Ireland.
Yeah, you can see when Donan's at training, the boys really look up to him, and when he is speaking, to do really listen and try and take on board what he has to say. And again, like for any of the young lads within the club, like Donan would be where you want to go. He is every young footballer, every young hurler wants to go out and play for their county and play at the highest level. And to see one of your own clubmates doing that, so he's been a real inspiration. I know some of the older lads in the club again really look up to him. So we're hoping he does well with Michael Cusacks this year, and also for Clare when the intercounty are back.
And Brian, lastly, in terms of, you mentioned you have big numbers of training, you are happy with the panel size this year. Have you any injury concerns going into championship, or people for work reasons or work commitments with COVID that haven't been part of the panel last year, that haven't been able to commit this year, or you few guys that are maybe touch and go for the opening round of the championship?
Yeah, we had 5 retirements from last year, but in fairness, we've had about 4 or 5 men back from abroad, and younger men as well. So it's actually brought the age profile down a little bit. Now we did have one injury. Neil Quinn pulled his hamstring, excuse me, last week. So he's probably going to be doubtful enough for the first round game. We do have a few other little tight hamstrings as well, which is probably not surprising considering like we're off for 3 months when there was no action at all. So we're trying to manage those and monitor those, and hopefully now they should be fine. The Neil probably be the only one that we would be missing.
Yeah, and I suppose last 30 seconds, I suppose the opening round game for you, Brian, as well. I suppose you said you are learning an awful lot about Clare football. I suppose you're going to be a busy man that day on your travels in terms of trying to catch in so many other games and seeing so many other if everything goes to plan for you and you advance to the winners round. I'm sure it's going to be a busy sort of schedule. If you're on a Saturday, you're going to be probably watching a whole load of games of a Sunday, and if you're on of a Sunday, you're probably going to try and take in 1 or 2 games of a Saturday, just to feel your way around and learn about the teams in the intermediate grade. So I presume for you, more than any other manager, it's going to be a very hectic weekend.
Well, I have 3 young girls, twins that are 4-year-old, and I have another daughter, a 3-year-old. So having a busy weekend and a busy schedule is nothing really new to me. But in fact, actually, probably going to a football match or two would be a nice break, I suppose. My wife wouldn't like me hearing that now, saying that, but yeah, definitely that weekend. I'll try and catch a few games in. We've got Bearfield next week in a challenge match, so that's going to be a real good challenge for us, and just to see where we are, and it's just a good test for the boys as well.
On that note, Brian Reilly, we wish you and Michael Cusacks a prosperous intermediate championship campaign. We hope that you achieve the targets you set out in the intermediate championship for you, your players, and for all the people of Karen and Michael Cusacks. That it's one of the founding members of Clare GA, the great history that Michael Cusacks himself bring, a real staunch North Clare footballing club and community. It's great to see you back. Moving up the grades in Clare football again, and we wish you and the players a real prosperous 2020 championship, the year of the COVID championship, and you achieve all the targets you set out to do. Thanks a million, Brian.
Thanks a million, Jim. Thank you.
Jim Conlan from RCB Radio Sport, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. As we continue our build-up to the Senior Football Championships and the Intermediate Football Championships, I'm delighted to be joined by a member of the Wolfe Tones management, Frank Casey, as we look ahead and we preview the tie between Wolfe Tones and Michael Cusacks. And I suppose Frank, if I can reflect on last year in 2019 for Wolfe Tones, I suppose you would have had big sort of ambitions, I suppose, in terms of that intermediate championship. Possibly your target, I'd say, would have been trying to get a semi-final at least, but it didn't turn out that sort of way. And it was, I suppose, for a club with such history and tradition as Wolfe Tones, I suppose you would like to be competing at the business end of the intermediate championship.
Yeah, naturally enough, we would, but I mean, like, we kind of sat down last year before the season started and we looked at our panel of players, and we're really in the middle. Last year we started a rebuilding process. Like, we're very, very young team. We've only got kind of 3 or 4 lads over the age of 23 or 4. Like, a lot of lads coming through minor, a lot of lads coming through 21s, and it'll take a while for them to blend in. Like, they haven't played much adult football yet. So, like, our goal last year was kind of hold our position in the league, and the main objective last year was after coming up from senior to make sure we held our intermediate status, and if we made a quarter-final, semi-final, it was a bonus and we take it from there, you know.
Yeah.
So we were happy enough with the year, like, as I said, it was the start of a rebuilding process, like, and that's going to continue for the next few years, what's there for us, you know.
Yeah, in terms of Wolfe Tones, I suppose when you look at, you have had some real good county players that have graced the scene, that have given great service to Clare, the likes of Chris Dunning, the likes of Gary Leahy. I mean, Kevin Cahill was on the fringes there for a while of it there as well. So you had mentioned about the new crop and the new breed of Wolfe Tones sort of youngsters taking time, and you have the likes of Jamie O'Sullivan inside with the county panel, and the likes of Conor Carrick and Liam Murphy sort of coming through that have been involved in Clare underage teams. So it's a very much a changing of the guard from the likes of Chris and Kevin and players of that, and Chris and Gary and Dara Leahy, who have given great service to Wolfe Tones. It's sort of as you mentioned, it's sort of a changing of the guard.
Yeah, well, Chris is still like we're looking at Chris Dishner, like, he's going to be one of our leaders there, with likes of Sean Brennan maybe himself to be kind of two of the older statesmen, as this fella says. Gary and Dara kind of haven't come around this year yet, like, we're still hoping we might drag them in somewhere along the line, but you know, it is a change in the guard. I mean, we won the intermediate back in 14, I think it was, and a lot of that team, I think, only maybe 2 or 3 that team still playing with us, like, such as like this youth, like, our team this year is going to be a younger team than last year even again, like, so we're just trying to. Kevin Cahill now is back around the small bit of game this year, like, he'll be thereabouts again this year. He's doing a good bit of the side, so we're rebuilding. We know we're rebuilding, and it's going to take time. It's going to take a few years, you know.
And in terms of what I noticed about Wolfe Tones, you're very, you've a club steeped in great tradition in terms of the dual status as well. And I suppose in terms of that, Frank, you've very much decided on your sort of, Wolfe Tones has decided on who is the footballing faction, who is the hurling sort of faction. I know you probably still have some dual players, but in terms of like, I remember seeing Wolfe Tones win an under-14 Fail AA final, and seeing the likes of Aaron Shanahan, Kevin Justice, Cunningham, and all these boys play football, but they sort of made their mind in relation to go the hurling route once they've got past the under 21 sort of bracket. And I suppose you have what you have in terms of football. You have a strong core, sort of loyal sort of group that are probably football first.
Yeah, we would, like, I mean, I'm sure all Jew clubs are the same. I mean, like, this year now we sat down, myself and Matt, the other joint manager, we sat down with the hurling this year, and we've worked it pretty well this year. I think we've 3 nights a week, like, between hurling and football. We get the dual players one night, they get the dual players the other night, and we do kind of a night in our own in as well. It's working out grand for us. I mean, the night we have the dual players, like, we're getting 22 or 3 down training, 24 lads down training, and the night for them we maybe 12 or 13 lads. So it's working out well. Like, there's a good buy from both sides to this, you know, like, you know.
And I suppose you bring you on to your opponents, Michael Cusacks. You wouldn't have crossed paths with Michael Cusacks a lot in the last few years, especially in the last 6 or 7 years. So they're a bit in terms of where they're coming from. They've been moving up the lower leagues. They've gained status. They won the Junior A Championship. So they're an unknown sort of quantity for Wolfe Tones, I suppose. So they're a new management team in place. They have a good lot of dual players playing hurling with Tubber. 1 or 2 sort of lads like Joey Droney that have featured for the Clare Miners in 2018. So they're a bit, I suppose, they're a bit of an unknown quantity for Wolfe Tones. I suppose that makes them dangerous.
We encountered them last year in the league. We were back there on the Friday night, I think it was. And it was kind of a winner takes all game. Whoever lost was going down, they didn't really get. And by Jesus, we had some battle back there. We only came out of there by a pint or something. We have a fair idea what we're facing into now. We're not been there blind.
Okay. And I suppose, Frank, I suppose in terms of the Intermediate Championship, I suppose you mentioned Wolfe Tones, it's a rebuilding process, and it's a sort of favourable draw. It's a favourable draw for both teams. Both teams will look at it, and they're not probably fearful of one each other as well. So it's a great opportunity for a team to progress into the winners round, and a favourable draw in the winners round, and you're looking at a county semi-final this year, and that would be a massive boost for Wolfe Tones, especially for a young team as well. So it's a very much a do or die sort of winner take all sort of match, because if you lose the first game, Frank, you're going to face into the losers bracket, whoever loses that, and obviously then the 3-way playoff, more than likely you're 100% more likely you're going to meet the losers of Kildysart and Corfin in that.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, Kildysart, Corfin, you mentioned them there, like, that's probably the 2 favourites for the championship. They'll be well up in the betting anyway. I mean, that was a nice juicy draw in the first round, but like, we set out to start the year, myself and Matt had a good chat at the start of the year. Like, we kind of said the aims were like be very competitive in the league, maybe try and push for promotion based in the league. And at the start of the year, it was getting qualifying, semi-final in the championship, and see where we go from there. Get there first, and then see where we go. So obviously enough, like, I mean, our aim is to win every game, and we were going over the aim trying to beat Michael Cusacks, and then hopefully with the help of God, with a good draw, maybe win our second round and in a semi-final, which would be great for us. Great for the young lads. Great experience, a big game, big situation, you know.
Yeah, I suppose, Frank, in terms of the start of the year, in terms for Wolfe Tones, did you get any league action? Did you get any game in the league, or were you one of the clubs that disrupted, that you didn't get any game in relation to COVID-19? So, have any of your players played any bit of football this year?
No, we got 1 game in the league there. We played Clymer in the first round of the league back in Clymer. We won that by a pint back there, and an off a bed even back there. We came over there with a good win, a win by a pint back there. And it was this year, as I said, like, we worked well with the hurling. We did good back work done up to the first round of the league. We did good 6 or 7 weeks physical work done with the lads, so we were physically in good shape, you know. But they had no football. That was the only bit of football that all year was that day back in Clymer, you know.
And I suppose you mentioned about football and lads getting football, and you had Conor Carrick was in with the Clare 20s at the start of the year, part of Michael Nealon's sort of management. Connor's probably has another year left at it, so in terms of that, I suppose he got a good lot of football, and he was training with players of high quality in terms of weekly basis, so he will have a good lot of football played for Wolfe Tones. And obviously Jamie is in with Colm Collins and the Clare seniors, so he would have a programme that Rob Mulcahy would have done out the strength and condition. So he would come back. So those boys would coming back to in great shape, in great fitness, and they would probably have a bit more football, I imagine, played than a few other lads.
Yeah, they might have a small bit more extra with the Clare. I mean, from what we gathered, they've nothing to move here since the lockdown, just doing their own bits. Like, so, like, yeah, we've been back training over the last 2 weeks there, and the boys are in good nick to move on fairness, you know.
And Frank, in terms of, you're saying you've been back for the last probably 2-3 weeks in terms of getting the players back into tune and the cycle in terms of the upcoming championship. Have you been one of those clubs that have gone outside, looked outside the county for games? Have you found it a struggle to find challenge matches against senior opposition, or have you entered the Garmin Cup, or in terms of trying to get game time ahead of championship? It's sort of difficult, I suppose, to hunt down or chase down a senior team, and so have you opted to go outside the county route?
No, we stayed in house up to now. We played Europe there last Friday night in Shannon. We're then morning now this Friday, so that'll be the thing, because if you were to players back to the hurlers next week for the hurling championship, and we will see them again Monday weekend, so that didn't obviously be too tight to keep for another challenge, you know.
And in terms of the academy and Wolfe Tones coming through, I suppose you have some sort of youngsters that you're probably looking to blood this year. You had a Clare County minor and Lee Murphy last year. Have you any sort of more additions, youngsters to the squad, or any returning players from overseas in relation that have come back due to COVID-19 that have thrown in their towel with Wolfe Tones since you've resumed in the last 3 weeks?
Well, we've gone back from overseas now. We'd have going back to the academy players coming through. We have Mark Sullivan there. He'll be very much part of our panel, and Darrell Tracy as well. All knocked them. All came through from last year's minor team. Also part of this year's minor team, we'll say. Good lads. Like, I mean, they'll be pushing. They'll be knocking on the door there for a place, like, you know. Like, we have a lot there in from the last 2 years. We played Kildare in 2-3-1 finals. So we have a good scatter lads up in 21 level as well to be pushing on there now. And to make their place and to make a name for themselves, you know.
Yeah. And then, Frank, in terms of Shannon and in terms of Wolfe Tones, I suppose soccer is a big thing in terms of you have multiple soccer clubs here in Shannon. You have rugby is a big thing. I suppose you have been working your academy for the last year. I suppose you are giving these lads the opportunity to shine. I suppose it's important, I suppose, for Wolfe Tones' future that they see adult real competitive championship match, and they feel that there's possibly that they won't be left waiting on the sidelines too long before they get their opportunity.
Well, that's it. I mean, like we've gone down to college last year as well. Very much enjoyed all of it. We went down the road of let's train, we'll play. Let's committed to football, we'll play for us. And we're kind of saying this year. Let's return up, train, we'll play. And you know, we're trying to encourage as many lads as we can. I mean, like as I keep saying, like we're in a rebuilding process. Like, we're going down the road of we want let's come to play football for us, not we go chasing let's come down for us. And we are getting lads. We're getting by with lads. Like, as I said, the next year now we trained around the Wednesday night with the two players. We have 24, 25 lads for the last 3 weeks, like, which is brilliant, like, you know. And all lads, they want to be there. They're not running around after them chasing. They're lads just come down their own free will and put the effort in. That's what we're looking for. That's how we feel we're going to rebuild the club football-wise and try and push on to get back to the senior level there the next couple of years, you know.
I suppose, Frank, in terms of you're trying to rebuild, lastly, in terms of trying to push to become a senior club once more. I suppose for Wolfe Tones, is it better to do your rebuild at the intermediate grade rather having to try and rebuild at the senior at the top level where it's probably cutthroat? I suppose there's no room to rebuild in senior football anymore, because if you're trying to rebuild in senior football from the top end, unless you're well established, you're going to see the trapdoor, I imagine.
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, the last 2 years now we've been senior with the pleasure of getting Quilty and Milltown 1 year after the other. So we got 2 nice trips there in the first rounds. And the way myself and Matt look at it is, if we go back, if we could win intermediate, when we go back senior, we want to go back to senior, not fearing who the draw is going to give us. So if we go back senior, we'd like to go up there and feel we'd hold around with Quilty, we'd hold around with Milltown, Clare, and these lads, you know. And if that takes 2 years to build a couple of new young lads and get young lads up to the pace of adult championship football, we're prepared to wait at the time and make sure we go that we're going up, that we will be competitive. be able to hold on anyway, you know.
Yeah. On that note, Frank Casey, a pleasure talking to you this evening. We wish you and your co-partner Matt O'Connor in terms of the best luck in terms of Wolfe Tones, in terms of your ambitions for the intermediate football championship this year, and a year as COVID-19 that has disrupted so many people in terms of their life and health. Hopefully you'll get as much as you want out of the championship, and you can come back at the end of October and you can look back on the 2020 Intermediate Football Championship for Wolfe Tones fans, players and supporters with great sense of fulfillment and achievement. Frank, pleasure and take care.
Likewise, Jim. Thanks a million, Jim.
Thank you.